Welcome to another edition of ET Legal World Conversations. Today, we are joined by one of India's most respected legal minds at the intersection of business, entertainment, and law, Mr. Zameer Nathani. Currently serving as the Global General Counsel at DNEG India Ltd, Mr. Nathani brings with him a rich tapestry of experience across top corporate houses like Z, Viacom 18, and Reliance ADA Group. Known for his deep expertise in media law, M&A, intellectual property, and corporate governance, he's also been instrumental in shaping legal frameworks for India's dynamic entertainment and tech landscape. Beyond the boardroom, Mr. Nathani is a passionate educator and a thought leader. Today, we explore the evolving role of the General Counsel in India Inc., how legal leadership is adapting to rapid digital disruption, and what it truly means to align law with business strategy in 2025. Mr. Nathani, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us, like
Thank,
always.
thank you for having me.
Yeah. So across your leadership roles, at Reliance, Raymond, Balaji, CarDekho, how have you, proactively identified emerging enterprise risks such as AI misuse, evolving data privacy norms, or regulatory unpredictability, and build strategic frameworks to address them?
Yeah, so during my career, which spans from a law firm
Mm-hmm.
where the clients was Eureka Forbes when we had
Mm-hmm.
Aquaguard very,
Mm-hmm.
coming out in the market.
Mm-hmm.
We had LG Electronics
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing mobile phones at that time, and I was registering the IP in India and other companies which were associated.
Mm-hmm.
And thereafter, with Reliance, Balaji Telefilms, Ekta Kapoor, Raymond, and other companies like CarDekho, and right now in DNEG. See, the whole framework, what happens is that there are some new developments which happen under the law, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, when you consider the e-commerce zone. So, when
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce, OTT, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, gaming was developing,
Mm-hmm.
I was part of Reliance,
Mm-hmm.
and there were no specific laws, to govern that. So,
Yes.
what would govern the apps is basically the terms and conditions, the privacy policy, the cookie policy, and the copyright notice.
Mm-hmm.
So, we started from that stage. When I came to Balaji, and the OTT world was then
Mm-hmm.
rising,
Yes.
there was a movement by the government saying that, let's have some law in place
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
OTT platforms, right? What we first pitched in is that let us have a self-regulatory mechanism like television, right? In case of
Mm-hmm.
television, there was a self-regulatory mechanism, and
Mm-hmm.
then there was a broadcasting content council where you can
Yes.
file a complaint and they can adjudicate the same, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was the stage where we started. And
Mm-hmm.
we were prepared for a self-regulatory mechanism for OTT,
Mm-hmm.
but fortunately, the government did not come out with any law. And we are seeing those moments at the moment, which is happening, where the government says there should be some censorship of the content,
Yeah.
and probably they are looking into the law. But I would always suggest that self-regulatory mechanism, like television, should be first there so that there is a first opportunity to these platforms.
Yeah.
Uh, we also saw a framework of the copyright law which got changed. So
Mm-hmm.
today the musicians and singers are entitled to royalty
Mm-hmm.
because there was a change in the law in 2014. Uh, but theaters are exempted from that. So we were representing the theater side of it, and we pitched into the government at that point of time that maintaining a theater from a real estate, etc., cost point of view, and movies are really made for the theater. So it doesn't make sense that we charge them royalty at this
Mm-hmm.
stage. And the law got passed. Every person who exploits that music
Mm-hmm.
is now probably required to give a royalty to the singers and musicians. To of course, they are a
Mm-hmm.
registered association, but theaters are exempted on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, presently, while in CarDekho and the present company, we are looking at artificial intelligence being developed.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, the primary law which is applied to all these technology is the information technology law.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are intermediary guidelines which are applicable to social media, etc. Right? Then there are e-commerce rules which are applicable also
Yes.
in terms of consumer protection, which the government came out. Now, keeping all these three laws and the rules in mind, your artificial intelligence from a technology point of view will be today governed under these three particular laws, right? Or the guidelines.
Yeah.
So these are the basic frameworks which are already available. The only suggestion from my end is that we should not bring in laws immediately in terms of the new technology ever, because then it curtails the exploitation of the technology itself on the positive side of it and what developmental it can bring to the industries and sectors, right? We are seeing artificial intelligence technology also getting into the zone of legal, and it's flourishing at that point of time. So these are the different frameworks which I saw. Like for example, 20 years back, we were developing framework on OTT, e-commerce, and gaming. In 2012, we spoke about OTT self-regulation. In 2025, we are now talking about artificial intelligence and how there should be self-regulatory mechanism, which should how there should be the laws which are existing and should govern the same, and we should not bring in the new law. One of the important part of the artificial intelligence technology which I really want to impress upon is the approach we take. Right, today every company is in the experimentation stage, so we should always keep three things in mind. Number one is your consent mechanism. Number two is your disclaimers. And number three is the limitation of liability. Three laws presently applicable in India. And from a corporate standpoint, these are the three fundamental aspects we should keep in mind. We should have consent. We should have a disclaimer clause because we are in the experimentation stage of artificial intelligence. And there should be a limitation of liability clause in all the agreements. So that's the bottom line of the framework, regulatory as well as on the corporate environment.
Zameer, you said that, the government should not rush into bringing laws. But, with the ever evolving, very dynamic, the changes we see on a day-to-day basis, the laws will become outdated if it's not come. Even DPDP rules haven't come. So the most likely the framework that they have set, that'll become outdated. And same with IT law, they're getting this India Digital India, DIA. So why would you say that it should not come it now?
So, whenever technologies came, even before, even 20 years back, 10 years back, and 5 years back, and now, if you rush with the law, you are curtailing that technology because then there is a fear of the liability on the companies, right? See, the
Yes.
corporates are also driven by board of directors, they're driven by investors, they are driven by different stakeholders. Nobody wants their name on the headlines from a regulatory non-compliance point of view, right? So when you bring in the law at an early stage where the technology is yet developing, you are actually discouraging the development of the technology, right? So like
Yes.
you have an autonomous driving today in US, and now Tesla has also entered into India, right? So if you allow these technologies to develop and don't restrict by law, then you are benefiting the technology, which will ultimately benefit the whole public because it's only going to enhance your service, right? Today, instead of the shopping mall, etc., you have 50-60% of the stuff which is available on Amazon, right?
Yes,
If you
yes.
had curtailed by a law on strict liability, etc., then Amazon, etc., would have not developed. Who ultimately benefits? The consumer benefits. So my view is that we should not bring in early technology laws to prevent the development of the technology. Number two, we have existing laws which cater to the same. Your contract law applies even to the arrangements which you do on these platforms, right? Your penal code of criminal activity also applies to these particular transactions. Information Technology Act applies to this particular artificial intelligence technology.
Yes.
Intermediary guidelines also apply to these technologies. So today, when intermediary guidelines speaks about impersonation, artificial intelligence, and deepfakes, deepfake is what? Deepfake is ultimately an impersonation of a person, right?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
your intermediary guidelines are covering that. So today we have sufficient laws to
Sufficient law.
safeguard the interest what we should let do is that we should let the technology develop and we should use the existing law. And then in future, if required, then we should have the new laws in place. That's my.
Yeah, that's very well explained and good. So, can you share an example where a major regulatory or technological disruption required you to pivot the legal and strategic direction of the company? How did you lead cross-functional alignment at the C-suite and board level?
So there are certain developments which happened under the law. Like for example, if I cite an example of Reliance. Okay. Now we were running a gaming company also, and in the gaming company, the VAT authority at that time GST was not there. It was VAT and service tax, value add tax for goods and service
Yes.
tax for service,
Yeah,
right? Now the VAT authority said that if you have a gaming CD, then VAT is applicable on that particular CD of the games because that's goods in the physical form. All right. Online games available on website do not attract the VAT. Now, what's your disadvantage? Which means the person who's offering the game online is not subject to VAT, and you're subject to VAT, which means your product will be expensive than the existing product which is available on online. It's a competitive disadvantage because if you're offering the same game online, you don't pay VAT. If I'm offering offline, then you pay VAT. Nobody will buy because my product is expensive. Okay. Therefore, we had to then pitch into the government saying that if this is the criteria, then it's a competitive disadvantage. You are either taxing the sector or you are not taxing a physical versus online. Okay. And then what happened at the end? We went to senior advocate Hari Salve. We took his opinion. And because we were part of Reliance, we had servers which were providing us telecom services. We uploaded all the games on those servers. The moment we upload that on servers and they are available online for downloading, they become online game and therefore they are no more in the physical form. Right? So this was one challenge we had overtaken. The second challenge what we faced during our stakeholder are the certain critical matters which came up, right? Like in terms of the OTT platform. Now the debate of OTT platform is that whether censorship should be there for OTT or not there, right? Because you have censorship in cinemas and don't have censorship in OTT. There's a debate that whether there should be censorship in OTT. Uh, what's the debate against OTT having regulation? It's a private watching in your house. It's not a cinema. There is no public. It's not a public place. Okay. I can do whatever I want in my house. What is the OTT platform where people are pitching that there should be a law on censorship? Is the content, right? That if you have certain content which are available on OTT, you may watch it in your home also, but those contents are so obscene that it is corrupting the mind of the young. That's probably the debate which is coming up. Okay. And people who are against the law on OTT are saying that I'm watching in my house. It's a private screening, not a public screening or cinema screening. I have the discretion to do what I do want to do in my life. Nobody should tell me what is obscene or otherwise. It's my discretion to watch it or not watch it, right? Now, when you speak about these things, I think these things also will matter during an argument because we still don't have a law. So when these matters come up before High Courts and Supreme Court, this will be the debate and the argument which will roll out in OTT versus not having a regulation versus having a regulation. Okay. The third point which I'm seeing controversial is the artificial intelligence, right? There are three primary issues which are coming up in artificial intelligence. Number one, who owns the intellectual property rights in the artificial intelligence technology which has been offered to you, right? Now, today, suppose if you engage a service of any artificial intelligence company and you develop some model on legal side of it, financial side of it, or a business model or a marketing model, who's the IPR owner of that particular model, right? Number two debate which is coming up is that whatever artificial intelligence is giving you as a response, whose data it is using, and who is the person or the individual or a company which can come back and tell you after 5 years that artificial intelligence gave you this amount of data. It was my private data, it was my confidential data, and therefore there is a claim which I have against you, right? So the first issue is the intellectual property rights. The second issue is the data privacy rights.
Yes, data privacy rights.
The third issue which is coming up is the litigation jurisdiction. All right. So if you imagine
Litigation?
litigation issue coming up,
Okay,
litigation
litigation
jurisdiction.
issue. Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, litigation jurisdiction means if there's a problem in any of these technologies, there are multiple jurisdictions available. Whether I should sue in United States, whether I should sue in Europe, whether I should sue
Yes, yes,
in
yes, yes.
Okay. And I'll tell you why is this issue coming up. Now we speak about a technology which is known as blockchain technology. Blockchain technology means there are blocks, right? So there will be small blocks which will be there in the blockchain technology, and your banking transaction can depend on that. Okay. We had a banking fraud in India. If blockchain was there, this fraud probably would have been stopped because the blockchain has different sets of approval in terms of block, and somebody there stops it. Okay. Now the issue in blockchain is that suppose if I do a transaction from India and send money to United States, I use a Swift account, right? We write down Swift account when we are transacting.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
we write down the account number, we write the Swift number. Swift is the European standards which is applicable. Okay.
Okay.
Now suppose when I transfer this money to Monica in United States, and this amount goes into some other account for any reason, whether the litigation will lie in India, whether the litigation will lie in Europe where Swift is located, or whether the litigation will lie in United States, is the debate which is happening. Okay. Because from my standpoint, I will say I have done the transaction, I've sent the money, I've completed formality. Nothing lies with me. Swift will say we are just an intermediary, we have done our formalities, we have nothing to do with your transaction or liability. The receiving bank says we have received instructions and based on which we have conducted the transaction. Whether the litigation will lie in United States or in Europe or in India is the jurisdiction question which is coming up now. All right, these are all unsolved questions which are there before multiple courts in global. All right, some are there in United States Court, Supreme Court. So three issues. Number one is the intellectual property right, who owns the IP. Number two is the data privacy issue, which can come up in future. You may today enjoy with the results of AI, etc. Somebody can come down after 2 years and say, sorry, this data which you've used is my proprietary data. Here is the copyright, here is the patent for that. And this is what you have used. Please share your profits and revenues with me. And third is the dispute on the litigation jurisdiction. Which jurisdiction you...
Yes.
I think these are some and substance of the issues which I faced or will face in future from the technology perspective. That's my view on it.
The second thing that you said, data privacy. So DPDP Act comes in play here.
Yeah.
So is it all aligned? I mean, are they there in the rule book to solve this?
So data privacy law at the moment, they have now combined the definition. Previously, there was personal data and sensitive data. Personal data is your name, address, mobile number, etc. Sensitive data, credit card data, your medical data, etc. Now the definition has been combined. It's personal information. Now data privacy law addresses this particular aspect of data privacy, and you will be able to use that particular law. We are just waiting for the rules to come in. The law is already enforced. The rules are pending. Once the rules are there, we will have complete law which is together with the rules and applicable on these technologies. So data at the moment, the Data Privacy Act is adapted to the technologies. If you have further development in technology, that then the law will have to accordingly amend for it. When I say changes in law means today we were talking about artificial intelligence, right? So we have seen ChatGPT, Google Gemini, etc. There are now agentic AI. Agentic AI means that
AI agents.
they are agent. They're like lawyers. They're like
Yes.
chartered accountants. They are like marketing genius. They are like business model CEOs who are like agents and providing you services, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
agentic AI field is now developing a lot. Same issues of data privacy, etc., will come up at that point of time, right? So if there is a development which is happening beyond the data, then the data privacy law will have to address that. The present law applies and has provisions which are applicable to artificial intelligence technologies and the data arising out of that. So any infringement of data privacy will be amenable to the data privacy law, which is already drafted. And
Okay.
of course, it's notified.
Okay, so in fast-paced, deal-driven environments like M&A, content partnerships, or cross-border licensing, how do you balance commercial agility with legal prudence, especially in boardroom advisories or investor negotiations?
See, every mergers and acquisition, M&A deal or a private equity transaction you're doing, it's basically, the deal heat, what you call, is on both sides, right?
Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
you want the money, they want the company deal, right? Now, how do you manage the expectations? Number one is your board. Your board always wants to ensure that whatever transactions we are doing has sufficient protection on the liability which is arising on the representation and warranties we are giving for this particular transaction, right? Because
Right.
the commercial part is already discussed. So the point is that the CEO has already made a commercial presentation, the deal has been accepted. Now we are on the stage of documentation, which is your agreements. Those
Yes.
agreements are hefty agreements. There are breach provisions in that. So they want to ensure that proper governance has been taken place.
Yes.
Number two is your investor.
Mm-hmm.
Your existing investor wants that whatever transaction you're doing for bringing a new party or a new investor or a new mergers and acquisition or company you're acquiring, that company has sufficient governance, that company has sufficient balance on the culture so that they are adopting that culture when you're intaking,
Yes.
and the senior leadership of that company which you are acquiring is aligned with the mindset of commercial business leadership culture strategy and governance. All right,
Yes. Yes.
so that's your second stakeholder.
Mm-hmm.
Your third stakeholder are your existing employees in the company,
Mm-hmm.
the existing leadership and the employees. Because ultimately, when you acquire a company, the leadership and the employees of the company which is acquiring is basically has to align with the leadership and the employees of those companies, and they want to ensure that those leadership and employees respect the kind of culture and the governance you're bringing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these are brief alignment on the culture side of it, governance side of it. Now, from a legal standpoint, you have to always ensure there are two, three fundamentals to put in place, right? Number one is when you're acquiring a company, we always see a prospect that the company has intellectual property rights, for example. All right. So we undergo verification and due diligence of the company, whether the accounting is good, whether the intellectual property rights has been patented, whether there's a copyright, trademark has been registered. So you understand that the sanctity of the company which you're buying is just not in the air. There are some rubber stamps of patent, etc., which are available, which means the company is very substantial and there's a future to that. Okay. Today, if you develop a product, it may be one of the exceptional product. But if you don't patent that product, somebody else can, in your neighbor, can start that particular thing tomorrow itself and go for registration of patent and can dislodge you. All right.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset of a leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, what you always ensure is a limitation of liability. If you imagine a best case scenario, you also imagine a worst case scenario. That if something goes wrong, what is my fallback option? What is the limitation of liability? If I have to terminate the contract, what are the consequences of that? Okay. So, number one is the due diligence. Number two, whether there are sufficient IP protection or a business model which has some competitive advantage. And number three, limitation of liability, which is available as a fallback option in case things go on the worst case scenario. So this is the legal side of it we review. So first is the business and culture side of it. Second is the legal side of it. That's about me.
Okay. So describe a time when you influence senior leadership, on or a business unit to pursue a legally sound but initially resisted strategic direction. So what leadership approach did you use to build consensus and credibility?
I think there are five fundamentals which every leader has to follow, irrespective of your
Mm.
domain, right?
Yes,
Say
yes.
today you may be a leadership position where you're heading the business of the company.
Mhm.
You may be a general counsel, you may be a chief financial officer, you
Mhm.
can be a marketing, health, sales head. Or,
Mhm.
so these are people who are on leadership position. Every
Mhm.
leader has to have this five traits, all right?
Yeah.
Because Harvard Business School, you know, teaches you this particular five traits to be built into you, all right?
Mhm.
So number one is the leadership, all right? The
Mhm.
leadership quality, the leadership responsibility you take from your side, all right?
Mhm.
Which means you're leading from the front.
Yes.
Number two is a strategy,
Mhm.
whether it's your personal growth, professional growth, or the growth of the company. You always strategize, right? What I'm going to do in next 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. This is what the strategy is about. Because today, suppose there are 20 AI companies which are available. They're all strategizing that in next 2 years, how do we have the maximum customers than the other one, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Number three is the culture.
Mhm.
Culture will always mean that if you're running a long time company, you
Mhm.
need to have the culture of integrity, ethics, and
Yes.
values, right?
Uh-huh.
You can't run an unethical business. You can't run a business where there are no values. You know, there are leadership positions which get into certain kind of zone. You
Mhm.
have to have a company which respects culture, has value system, has integrity, has ethics in it. All right.
Yes.
One
Yes.
bad news can cost you the company itself. So you
Yeah.
will have to maintain the culture of the company.
Mhm.
Number four is the operational efficiency.
Mhm.
Operational efficiency will mean that whatever work you're doing, can you speed up that particular work, right? In a better way, using a technology or using any other strategy or a mechanism where you can make it operational efficiency, right?
Mhm.
Amazon gives an example of that. So today morning I was looking at one of the uh, documentary which is made on
Mhm.
how consumers are convinced to buy products. Okay.
Okay.
And what is the operational efficiency in Amazon? That you can
Fast.
one click, you
Yeah.
can order by one click.
Mhm.
The processing happens in a way that it lands up in your doorstep as fast as possible.
Yes.
This service, you getting down from your house. This
Mhm.
service, you going to the store.
Mhm.
Service, you selecting the product. This
Mhm.
service, you coming back to your house. And
Mhm.
that's what the unproductive time you want to discard, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
operational efficiency has been brought by Amazon in terms of shopping experience.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And number five is execution.
Mhm.
Whatever you plan, if you don't execute, it all goes for a toss, right? You
Mhm.
can plan, but if you only keep planning and if you don't execute, you will not be seen as a great leader. So there's five traits in every leader. Number one is the leadership.
Mhm.
Number two is strategy. Number
Yes.
three is culture. Number
Mhm.
four is operational efficiency. And
Mhm.
number five is execution. I think this is what every leadership convincing is what I present to all the workplaces where I'm there.
That's very brilliant. That's very wholesome actually. Yeah. So you've shaped IP and legal strategy across diverse industry, media, FMCG, tech, and entertainment. How do you ensure that IP portfolios support just protection, but long-term monetization and brand growth?
See, whenever you develop any intellectual property rights, All right. You also see the commercialization of that intellectual property rights.
Yes.
So, for example, if you develop, for example, a small technology in hardware,
Yes, yes,
where
yes.
in terms of the furniture hardware, right? Now there are multiple options which are available. What's the price will you get for it? Suppose you go for patent filing, you will find hundreds of those already exist. Suppose if you get a patent also, what's the value of that particular hardware which you will get? How do you market that? So what do you do when you prepare an IP portfolio? You see how you will value that IP, how you will commercialize that IP, and how will you exploit that IP, and how long can you exploit that IP, right?
Okay. Yes,
If
yes.
you see brands like Amazon, they're integrating AI because they want to extend the experience, which includes AI, so that their IP value exists for longer period than against the competition, right? So whenever an IP
What does it mean
portfolio,
IP value exists? Sorry, I interrupted.
no, please, please.
What does it mean by IP value exists? I mean, the integrating AI, you said.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that I'll give you an example. Like today, when in the past, BlackBerry developed a technology, right? That was an okay. Because the valuation of that IP, the valuation was high because that was one of the product which was not only offering you uh, your experience of learning, the product was also offering you of testing using data packets. Okay, we have not even heard. We always thought that it will consume bandwidth. Uh, and then they were offering also email technology. We are using packets. If you don't had that data packets, sending an email using a phone line was the most difficult part. What happened to the valuation? The valuation was in millions at that point of time.
Yeah.
Now, this is the IP which you can use for your commercialization purpose. And then they beat the market where they had Nokia, etc. Everything they had beat the market, right? So when I say portfolio of IP means a BlackBerry technology on the earlier days, today it being iPhone, the the intellectual property value which you get, all right. So there is an option of app downloading. There's an option of everything as converted into app. There's an option of email. There's an option of texting. All valuation will ride off an IP on how much it is able to capture the market. So when you capture the market, you get the IP valuation. Today, Apple being more than 1 trillion, and therefore IP commercialization has been the most effective for Apple today. Okay. So when I say IP portfolio means an Apple phone, IP value means the value which the product is providing, and therefore having a IP valuation in the market. In the balance sheet, they would write that as an IP, and therefore the IP commercialization happens throughout the globe where they sell maximum products in the market today. That's the IP portfolio I'm talking about.
Okay. You continuing or you given the answer? I mean, the whole question. Because I interrupted you, you were explaining to me.
No. So this was my summary of.
Okay. Yeah.
I was using this terminology because this is the terminology which is used in World Intellectual Property Office of United Nations, WIPO,
Hypo.
where they say that when you say a IP portfolio, IP portfolio means IP value and IP commercialization. Okay.
Okay.
If you can't commercialize an IP, there's no use of a IP portfolio, right? So
Yes.
today, suppose if you manufacture a remote control of a television, the television remote control will have, you can register as an IP saying that you can press the button and also access Amazon. You can press the button and also access Netflix by
Yes.
using that remote control of the television. What is the IP value of that? How much it will sell, and what is IP commercialization, right? Will you be able to sell that product for 10,000 rupees? Answer is no, right? So that's where I'm reflecting. That when you create an IP portfolio, always keep the IP valuation in mind and IP commercialization in mind. That's where you will get the real value of it.
Yeah. That's true. So you've been a visible advocate against cybercrime and misinformation like deepfakes or bullying. How have you institutionalized this advocacy into corporate policy, legal defense strategy, or industry governance?
Yeah, so we I was one of the first technology lawyers of the country, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when the information technology law came in 2000,
Mm-hmm.
and 2002, 2003 onward, cases of information technology violations started coming up on computers. At that time there were no laptops, and you would find enforcement agencies sometimes would confiscate the monitors because the CPUs were kept below the desk. Okay, so
Yes.
that's the awareness stage where we started.
Mm-hmm.
Now, uh, events like pornography, events like e-commerce fraud at the starting of the day,
Mm-hmm.
they were all coming up. People were going to the website and putting up obscene content by hacking it. So we started from those days, but the strategy which was always put in place was that the cybercrime of
Mm-hmm.
our country was always getting into the educating mode of how do you tackle this, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the best instance which I remember is about Reliance, where somebody had committed an e-commerce fraud. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this fraud would have been existing of
Mm-hmm.
in 2001. It was a 1 crore value. Okay. So at this present time, the value would have been about approximately 8 to 10 crores. So it was a big fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that, let's take an action on it. So we got instructions that, yeah, we need to go and catch those, right? So what did we do? Cybercrime Mumbai police, which has their headquarters at Bandra Kurla complex, BKC, we registered a complaint there. A team was formed. Uh, the cybercrime team was very adapted to these particular kinds of frauds. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So normally in such raids, they would also carry ammunition. Okay. Uh, this fraud was detected about 300 to 400 kilometers from Jaipur.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the team of Cybercrime
Mm-hmm.
Mumbai. The
Mm-hmm.
team together with me
Mm-hmm.
went to Jaipur. We
Mm-hmm.
started our investigation there. It took us about 4 5 days to nab the criminals because they were flinting from one place to another. So what they would do is that they would order a phone, from example, from a e-commerce platform. The phone would be delivered to a bank known as Bank of Baroda in Jaipur.
Mm-hmm.
In that bank, once the phone is delivered, the guy will receive the phone in a motorcycle near Bank of Baroda, saying that I'm the employee of Bank of Baroda. Yeah, I'm just going home and I'm on the bike. Just give it to me so that I can go for my lunch, right? He would receive it on a motorcycle at Bank of Baroda. So we thought that he's an employee of Bank of Baroda, but he was not. That was just a location. Once he receives that particular good in his motorcycle, he would then give it to a state transport bus driver. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a practice in uh,
Mm-hmm.
interior region that the
Mm-hmm.
bus driver of a state transport is actually a courier. So you give him any stuff and 100 rupees, and he will deliver at the particular stop, and stop from the stop you can collect it. Okay. So the bus would travel about 300 kilometers. So we had to lay a trap. So he would
Okay.
receive that at Bank of Baroda in a motorcycle. He would give it to a state transport bus driver. The driver will take the delivery 300 kilometers away and will give it
Mhm.
to the main criminal, right? So this
Okay.
was the modus operandi of the fraud. You order from a e-commerce, you receive the delivery at Bank of Baroda, Jaipur. The guy receives on a motorcycle. Why he receives on a motorcycle? Because if the police comes to catch him, he can run away, right? That was the strategy. He would then give it to a state transport bus driver, and the bus driver would deliver to the destination. The state transport bus driver is unaware of the fraud.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, what we did is that we laid a trap. Uh, that we saw this guy. So first we caught the bike guy. Okay.
Mhm.
And the police is quite adapted. So when somebody is on a bike, the first thing what they do is that the one of the police guy will sit on the back seat itself, so that if this guy tries to run away, he's already on the back. Okay. So we caught the first guy. We
Mhm.
took him in custody. We interrogated him.
Mhm.
And then he told us that this happens to the state bus driver who's not even aware about the destination, who's not even aware about the fraud, and he will deliver it to the destination. So we made a package containing of stone, and we packaged literally like an Amazon packing, and we put stones in that as if it's a mobile phone. And
Mhm.
this was given to the state transport bus driver 4 o'clock in the morning. And the bus started for 300 kilometers. We had two vehicles which were chasing that particular bus. Once the bus reached the destination, the moment the other guy, who's also on the bike, receives that particular parcel, we already had people stationed there who were standing and looking for this guy. They got in caught him. Okay. So this
Okay.
was one of the biggest raids which were conducted. We caught this
Mhm.
guy. We took him to the local police station that we are taking him to Bombay.
It was a racket.
It was a racket. We
Uh,
when we raided the house,
mhm.
we found number of Apple laptops, number of Apple printers at that point of time in 2006. You can imagine
Oh my
what
God.
was the plush thing which was happening.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the house of this particular person was very
Mhm.
near to the police station also. So
Mhm.
probably, that guy had already committed a lot of offense, but he was absconding.
Mhm.
So this was one of the major operations we took from the Reliance perspective to raid a person and bring him to justice at that point of time. So that was the strategy which I incorporate with all the corporates, where actions is required to be taken, where stakes are very high. Action has to be taken, and we should uh, conduct raids and we should bring people to books. Similarly, we did that for counterfeit products of Raymond, which were
Mhm.
also happening in one of the states on the north side where police operations were conducted. That's how we tackle the information technology frauds.
Okay. But these counterfeiting and all, they done. It's in unorganized market, and it's very difficult to tap them. I mean, it's across the country, Hannah Zameer,
Yeah,
and you were part of this adventures that you told. That was quite fascinating to hear.
yeah,
Yeah, you can't
that,
tap everyone.
yeah. So these frauds are quite common,
Mhm.
especially
Mhm.
there are
Yes.
zones which are there where it happens. All right. So police has a name of it where the crimes are conducted. The only thing is the crimes have now become very sophisticated, right? For
Okay.
example, when we conducted this raid for Reliance, there was a dynamic IP and static IP. So when you use an internet, earlier it
Mhm.
was a static IP, one
Mhm.
IP. So with that IP address, you can identify the location and you can track that guy, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes.
During our raid, that particular technology had changed. You had dynamic IP, which means the IP keeps on changing. The second call, the IP will change. The third call, the IP will change.
Mhm.
Okay. But of course, what we did is that we first identified this guy from Bank
Mhm.
of Baroda address, and then I
Mhm.
think we laid the trail for the trap. Okay, but it was one of the major operations, and why ammunition is carried is that because there have been incidents where when you raid a village, there are people who gather there, and there are possibilities of attack, which is possible. So we were completely ready for that situation. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the things I had lots in life.
Yeah, that's great. That's quite fascinating to know. So, coming to, uh, how would you guide a global brand or talent-driven company in responding to reputational harm caused by deep fake content or Gen AI misuse? Coming back to AI that you were explaining about the laws. So,
I think three fundamentals we should always keep in mind. Number one is the consent, that
mm-hmm,
whatever content you are using for artificial, which
mm-hmm,
belongs to a third party, just take a consent of that third party that you are using that particular content for AI exploitation. Number two is a disclaimer, because today we are accepting disclaimer that artificial intelligence technology is in the experimentation stage. Things can
mm-hmm,
go wrong, right? Now today, if you go to many of the great company's website, everyone has added a paragraph. In CarDekho.com also, we have added a paragraph in the terms and conditions that we are using artificial intelligence technology, and this experimentation basis, we are taking your consent, right? Something can go wrong. See, because today nobody wants to do it intentionally because you're a corporate. You are just wanting to build a good customer experience using AI, right? So disclaimer has to be in place. And number three, limit your liability. That when you say in your terms and conditions that I have taken your consent, I have taken a disclaimer that artificial intelligence technology has been used to enhance customer experience, but something can go wrong because we are all in the experiment stage. We are limiting a liability to 1,000 rupees, lakh rupees, or what is actual, etc., so that your company does not get sued for 100 crores and 200 crores. All right. So these are three important factors which I will always propagate to all the companies which have started using new technologies, artificial intelligence. Number one, take consent. Number two, put a disclaimer. Number three, limit your liability. And the fourth most important part, this will flourish the insurance industry. Wherever required, start taking insurance for such liabilities if there are options and avenues which are available. I think these four aspects will be very critical next 5 years.
Okay. So, as a legal leader and coach, how do you mentor emerging legal talents to develop not just technical excellence, but commercial judgment and strategic influence?
See, for me, the experience was very good because I have done law, but I also have an executive MBA from NMIS. I have a
Yeah.
program for leadership development, which is like an executive MBA from Harvard. And I have done advanced management program, which is the highest level of management program for the CEOs from Harvard Business School. And there were alumni like Mr. Ratan Tata, late Mr. Ratan Tata, and MasterCard CEOs, etc. Right? So it's a combination of business legal. The legal fraternity, the people who are there in corporate legal should always understand that it's a business legal mix, right? It's not only silo of legal, it's not only silo of finance, it's not only silo of marketing. It's ultimately all combined together, then only the orchestra can play, right? You, we can have legality, we can have the financial affairs, but we also need to align the business to it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's always a discussion or a negotiation on business legal. Number two, take responsibility for completing the deal. It's not about my opinion that I've given my opinion on XYZ, whether it's legal, finance, marketing, sales. I have given my respective opinion. If the deal is not complete, then it's a failure for all of us, right?
Yeah.
So today, from a legal professional point of view, we are looking at completing the deal. Business is important, legal is important, financial is important, but the execution of the deal is also very important. That is the first factor one should keep in mind. Number two, when you're negotiating a contract or when you're negotiating a deal with a party, and when you're insisting on legality, when you're insisting on financial obligation, when you're insisting on other commercial obligations, all right, when you're tying up with other party, keep both sides in mind, right? That whether you would have been on the other side and reasonably accepted that position. Okay. If sometimes when I write a clause saying that if something goes wrong, Monica will pay me 100 crores, right? If I was sitting in the place of Monica, would I have accepted that clause? If not, then I should not offer that clause. I should offer something more reasonable. Okay. So these are two advices. Third, I am looking legal professionals getting into leadership positions and leadership zones. All right. Which means they are getting leadership position, they are getting into boardrooms, they are getting into positions of fiduciary, where companies, CEOs, managing directors, boards are heavily relying on them. Okay. If you are getting into that leadership position, you have to also handle those leadership positions with maturity. So three advices. Number one, don't look at your field in silos. It's a combination of business legal. Number two, your leadership is all about execution of the transaction and not operating only in the zone. Number three, There are a lot of leadership position which is coming up for the legal professionals, which means there's a lot of trust that you will take care of the business as well as governance. And I think that's what I see as a good prospects for legal professionals, which they should keep in mind.
Yeah, Zameer, you have upgraded, you've upskilled, in your career. You have taken degrees in between, you've gone out and studied. Um, that is also one advice you would like to give, that one should not, like you said, not in silos. One should not, I mean, one has a law degree, becomes a GC or a lawyer or whatever, but still has to upgrade to be in that leadership thing. Like you mentioned, your Harvard degrees and all. Hmm?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you don't restrict yourself only to law, only to finance, only to a particular degree in marketing, etc. Also scale up to yourself on business management side of it. All right. Because today businesses are also expecting that you understand the business necessity also, as well as the legality and financial viability and marketing campaign, etc. Okay. So from
Mhm.
that perspective, I would suggest that not only restrict yourself to educating yourself in legal or finance, etc., but also educate yourself in business management, because that actually explains to you how do you handle business management together with your acumen of legal, finance, marketing, etc. Okay, so I would always propagate people to have business management education together with your technical education, whether it is legal, finance, engineering, etc. Have business management so that you then align yourself and act as a business leader rather than being acting as a in silos.
Yeah, definitely. And also we have seen, recent pattern where GCs have been now are board members, and they've been given a more wider role on the table, you know.
Absolutely. In my previous companies, I have been on the board of US.
Mhm.
I've been on the board of in companies in India, Singapore, UAE jurisdictions. So both
Mhm.
positions have been very common because
Mhm.
there is a assumption by the board and the leadership is that the person who's qualified in law and has business experience will be able to manage the board better. All right. They're looking not only the business side of it, they're looking at legal and governance side of it. As I
Mhm.
said, one bad news can cost the company a lot.
Mhm.
You're coming in with an IPO, and if a bad news comes out, your IPO has gone for a toss. Okay, so I think a lot of legal professionals are now on the boards of companies, which is right in my view also. But there are a lot of other professionals who have been in leadership position also. Like if you see Tim Cook, who's presently the CEO of Apple, he is an ex-lawyer. Okay.
Yes.
So there have been a lot of professionals who have become CEOs of the company, managing directors, chairman, and of course they are on the boards of company.
Mhm.
Because this is a trust which is placed by the management that the person will manage the business and legal and financial and other affairs of the company in a very professional manner. And I think we should then up ourselves to that particular standards.
You're being multifaceted, and yeah. And what frameworks or rituals do you put out in place to ensure legal operates cross functionally as a strategic partner or product, finance, operations, and ESG teams?
Those five principles. I mean, I always try to work around those five principles that when you are looking at a deal, all right,
Mm-hmm.
the CEO of the company might be leading the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a saying that, suppose you want to assume yourself as a board of director, then you work like a board of director. When you assume yourself like a CEO, you work like a CEO. When you assume yourself like a general counsel, you work like a general counsel, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, so what positions you want in life, if you start acting or behaving in that positions, those positions become very clear to you in future. Okay. So that's the first standard which I will lay for people. Second, those five qualities. Always show best leadership in the transaction, deal, or handling of a situation which you're doing. Number two, always have a strategy in place for what you're doing. Number three, always act in a culture manner where you have some value system, integrity, ethics. Don't defraud any party. Do the right things, because people observe when you do right things. They hold you in very up in reputation. Number four, bring operational efficiency if you can fasten the process of that work. And number five, execution. Nothing is complete without an execution. You can plan for 100 days, and if you don't execute, you will not be considered to be good leader. All right. If
Yeah.
things are completely illegal, one can understand. Otherwise, find a solution and execute. So show great leadership, have a good strategy in place of what you are dealing with, have a value system for you, operational efficiency wherever you can fasten the process, and execute.
First, fine tune the blueprint, make a blueprint, fine tune the blueprint, and put it in all, put it in play, and
Absolutely.
outcome. Yes.
Execution is
Yes. So you've led, governance across multinational operations with diverse legal systems. With what governance challenges, arise in global multicultural organizations, and how do you address them at the board and operational level?
see today we are operating at 1.6 max speed. 1.6 max speed will mean that today businesses are very fast. Okay. You have to be commercially very fast so that you can reach the market first. You can beat your competition. You can generate faster revenues. So business is very fast today. It's running at a speed of unimaginable. Now, in this situation, the turnaround time is expected to be as of yesterday, right? Now, this is one of the best things which can happen in business. Okay. If companies like Microsoft, companies like Amazon, companies like Apple would have not released their product and researched about it for 10 years or 20 years, they would be late in the market. So people have to come out with their product and service as fast as possible, and there is a speed which is involved. With that speed also involves your legal affairs, your financial affairs, your governance, your compliances, etc. Okay. Now, one has to digest the fact that expectation is that the business deal, if signed as of yesterday, would get you the best thing. The second expectation which we all should set is that in the excitement of speed, if there is a non-compliance, then today we read headlines in morning email from ET Legal, etc. also that there are a lot of fines which are applied by a lot of regulators, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you like to be seen on those headlines, and which will affect your reputation and therefore also reflect on your compliance mechanism? So speed of business is important, but we should also keep in mind, but if that speed leads to a legal speed breaker or a financial uh, mishappening, that can have a lot of consequences on your reputation from an investor's point of view. Okay, we have many examples to cite in India where we have seen multiple companies which have remained in headlines for last 10 years on what has gone wrong in their compliance, how they have defaulted on their loans, and those companies have now become so unamenable that tomorrow if you stand before a financial investor, nobody will invest in that company, right?
Yes.
So what my general advice will be that business has to be fast, legal, finance, all other departments have to be very fast, but we should always keep the governance and compliance cycle in mind so that we don't compromise with our governance, compliance, as well as the value system. That's the only messaging. Will we reduce the speed and should be slow? The answer is no, because today if you're slow, you will be out of the race. So fast is the right word, because all these companies have succeeded because of that. But we should also keep in mind that if today, tomorrow, something goes wrong in legal and governance, there are consequences, and our name will be on the headlines, which will have a lot of consequences. So we have to balance both, but speed is the light of the day.
Okay, so with ESG and DEI gaining strategic importance, how are you evolving your legal and governance frameworks to embed sustainability, compliance, and ethical responsibility into the long-term value creation?
So, I was also heading ESG in my previous company.
Mhm.
And just one example, and this will give you the context of where we are heading in terms of ESG, right?
Mhm.
So previously, when we would sign any agreement with the investor who is investing some money in our company, we would have ESG as a guidelines,
Mhm.
an annexure saying that, that your company is great, we are investing in your company. But if you can also follow these ESG norms, environment, social, and governance norms as a guidelines, then this will be good for the company.
Mhm.
This is now converted into obligation, which means the same annexure now says that this is not a guideline. You're supposed to follow this. You're supposed to ensure that you have less emission. You're supposed to
Uh-huh.
ensure that you have a green environment. You're supposed to ensure that there is a equality to employee, etc.
Mhm.
Which means that any issue arises from any employee or from a governance standpoint, it's a breach of investment agreement. Those investment agreements may be 5,000 crore, which should be invested in your company. Those investors can terminate those contracts on the
Mhm.
complaint of being unfair to employees, on the complaint that the emission levels of the companies have gone up, on the allegation or where it is proved that the company is not complying with environment, social, and governance norm. If there is a governance non-compliance, the investor can terminate the contract. So now you can imagine if there's a headlines that X regulator has fined this particular bank with 1 crore
Mhm.
penalty.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
penalty means that there's a failure of governance, and it can also lead to a breach of investor agreement, and the investor can terminate the contract and ask for the money back. So
Okay.
this
So
is
those
where
are all mentioned in the clauses.
this is all now mentioned. So previously it was all guidelines, now it's
Mhm.
an obligation, which means
Okay.
the penalties which are seen in the headlines of the newspaper can give
Mhm.
a reason to the investor to terminate the contract with that particular company and ask for the money back. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So
Okay.
that's where now you feel the power of ESG and other things what you said about.
So how do you integrate, this board level ESG goals such as gender equity, climate action, or transparency into legal contracts, due
Correct.
diligence processes, and all policy?
So what we do is that in my previous company where I was also part of ESG,
Mm-hmm.
we had independent ESG audit which will take place. The
Mm-hmm.
process will go on for about 6 months. Every department has to submit information from
Mm-hmm.
electricity bill to the aircraft or the flights which have been taken by the teams is all recorded. Emission standards were recorded, and accordingly a report was given. So
Yes,
I
yes.
speak about CarDekho.
Mm-hmm.
We came out with a ESG report. CarDekho is one of the first unlisted companies to
Mm-hmm.
have a detailed ESG report for continuously last 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and their standards have been near to companies like Oracle, etc. Okay, so that has been ensured. So that was one of the best part of this company, where ESG standards were maintained, compliances were done, emissions were brought down, etc. Okay, so that is my experience on the ESG side. Have an ESG audit every year where there is a third party independent ESG firm which will inspect your records. They will record emissions. They will give you comment on the emissions, and they will also give you a lot of recommendations on what should be next rectified so that you have better ESG compliance.
So with AI disrupting, coming back to IP and everything, with AI disrupting IP media and legal landscape, how do you stay ahead of evolving legal risks like copyright overreach, algorithm defamation, or data ethics, and translate that insight into business strategy? How do you do it?
I mean,
Uh-huh.
the advantage you have always got in IP violation, like for example, in copyright violation, the
Mhm.
first thing which you are served is a notice saying cease and desist, right?
Mhm.
You're using something which is my copyright, please cease and desist. That's your first stage. Okay. Your second stage is your damages stage. That if you have
Mhm.
money, you will have to give that money. Okay, which
Mhm.
lands up in the courts of law.
Mhm.
Now, when you speak about three things: artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain. These are the three technologies which have been in the forefront of the new technologies which are coming up. How do you plan for contingencies in that? I gave you the first plan that at the first stage itself, please ensure that when you are using this technology and the data in that technology, please take consent on that. Number one, disclaim your liability. Make a paragraph, say that we are using artificial intelligence technology for experimentation purpose to enhance customer experience, but something can go wrong, and therefore we are disclaiming our liability. Please don't come behind us. Okay, we are trying to do something good. Nobody tries to do anything which is criminal. Okay, unless, because normal corporates like Tata and all would be testing AI technology for, of course, improving customer experience, right? The third thing is limit your liability. Okay, because IP violations can happen and there can be claims which can come up to you. Okay, so somewhere down the line, take consent, disclaim liability, and also then limit your liability, because some courts can come back and say that you have disclaimed the liability, saying that I am using artificial intelligence technology to enhance customer experience. But that does not mean that you distribute this data to 500 companies in Noida, okay, for experimentation purpose. And therefore, you're liable for data privacy, and therefore we are giving a claim of 100 crores to you. So limit your liability in those contracts, saying that if something goes wrong, my liability is limited to 1 lakh, 10 lakh, whatever is possible under the law. Okay, so that there is at least a clause to protect you. Third thing, if you're doing a very big experimentation of this nature, please have AI liability insurance put in place. Okay, 100 crores, 200 crore, 1000 crore, depending upon the size of the company, because these are new technologies. Things can go wrong. Datas are available on dark web, and therefore hacking is also a possibility in terms of the data while using AI technology. And therefore insure your company so that if something goes really wrong, you have a backup of an insurance. So, four strategies. Number one, always take consent. Number two, disclaim your liability. Number three, limit your liability. And number four, have insurance in place for your new technology so that you have a backup for liabilities if the court orders to pay that.
Okay. So that's correct. You said something about the, limit your liability to this much, 1 lakh, 2 lakh. Mm. And what is this AI, this thing liability? I just wanted to understand. You said something AI led.
For example, so I'll give you a common example which you will be aware of. We had an issue of Facebook Cambridge Analytica, right? What was the issue? Facebook will provide certain data to Cambridge Analytica
Yes, 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 yes,
for
yes.
evaluation of data,
Yeah.
and basis those you will be able to identify the biases of people. Okay, who, or for example, okay. Now Facebook had given that data, and Facebook, of course, will have terms and conditions where everything you have ticked, right? How do you find 80,000 companies in Noida, Gurgaon, and other places of India having your PAN card and Aadhaar card? Because somewhere down the line you have ticked on the terms and conditions, right? We go to a website, by default you say I accept. You have agreed to share your personal data because their terms and conditions say you agree to share your personal data. You have not even read those terms and conditions. You say I accept. Okay. Now, when you say limitation of liability, which will mean that when Facebook Cambridge Analytica issue came out in the market, the analysis was that Facebook was very upfront in saying that, of course, we have a contract with Cambridge Analytica. We have taken user consent. We have a contract with Cambridge Analytica, and we are sharing those information under a contract. Okay. Everything is completely legal and valid. Okay. Now, suppose I'm testing an AI product, and if I provide that particular data of Monica, her PAN card, her Aadhaar card, her home address, her mobile number, her email address to
Mhm.
1 lakh companies globally
Mhm.
because I've taken her consent, because
Mhm.
I've disclaimed, and because I've said to Monica that please read my terms and condition. I can do all this, but I have limited my liability that tomorrow if you come back to me and said that you infringe my data privacy right, I will pay you 1,000 rupees. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, data privacy law is very clear
Yes.
that you require specific consent for specific purpose.
Mhm.
The present data privacy law says that if I'm going to share Monica's information with
Mhm.
Facebook or Cambridge Analytica, I
Mhm.
have to say that I am going to share with this.
Mhm.
I can't say that I may share this information for a broad purpose, for broad companies, etc. You have to specify. Okay. If
Mhm.
not, Monica can come back and sue the companies for 100 crores. In
Okay.
which case, the court will say that Mr. X, you have said in your terms and condition, I have taken Monica's consent. I have disclaimed that this is experimentation and customer experience, and Monica, you will enjoy the customer experience, and therefore I am sharing it. I have limited my liability to 1,000 rupees in terms and condition, which Monica has not read. But Monica has come back and said that you can't, because of this, give this kind of information to 1 lakh people globally because this is infringement of my privacy. I am now making a claim of 100 crores.
Mhm.
When you make this claim of 100 crores, and if the court will upheld that, your limitation of liability clause is cancelled. Court will say 1,000 rupees is a nonsense stock. 100 crore is the liability which you're supposed to pay. Okay.
Okay.
Therefore, when you speak about limitation of liability, you can't say limitation of liability upstanding. In
Okay.
certain cases, courts will come back. Indian courts will come back. European courts from a GDPR will come back. US courts will come back and say that by taking a consent does not mean that tomorrow the information is available on the street. Okay. So you can't disclaim liability in certain situations and circumstances, and therefore limitation of liability is not absolute. You can write in your terms and conditions, but you still have an exposure. And the solution for exposure for the corporates is that buy insurance because that's your fallback.
Okay.
That's
Okay. So we just one thing, you gave this example of Facebook and Analytica, and few many years back, he was summoned, Mark Zuckerberg, in the U.S. representative parliament, and he was answering, but he got away with it. He did not. There was no fine. Nobody came and told him. Nobody sued the company for sharing the private information.
you are saying that I'm a shareholder of Zoom, etc., and many companies in United States like Nvidia.
Mhm.
Uh, So there was an allegation on Zoom that Zoom is sharing information to China, etc. We had heard a long time back, right?
Mhm.
And some assessment had happened.
Mhm.
And finally, there was a settlement by Zoom. And I think every shareholder got $0.08 or $8 as a compensation for sharing their information. Okay, so
Okay.
it's not only Facebook and Cambridge Analytica.
Mhm.
Many of the companies which are operating in a global environment have settled cases with the federal in United States, for example, by giving certain compensations which is not to the public knowledge, right? Now this is to my knowledge on Zoom because I'm one of the shareholders. So I received an intimation from the company saying that you are entitled to $0.08 as a compensation on the overall settlement, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So uh, this is what the situation is. I mean, it's not only Cambridge Analytica. There are a lot of other companies which have gone to SEC, for example, Security
Mhm.
Exchange
Yes,
Commission,
yes, please permission.
or for
Mhm.
example, SEBI in India, where
Mhm.
settlements have been done, liabilities have been admitted to an extent, and
Mhm.
therefore compensation has been paid.
Okay. So if your global board asked you to outline the most consequential, legal and regulatory shifts expected in the next 3 to 5 years, what would you highlight and why, and how would you prepare the organization today?
So I would ask organizations to focus on three things. Number one, whatever technologies we are developing in terms of artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchains, any new technology on EV, solar, for example, which are new tech, all right? Focus on intellectual property registration of that as first come, first serve basis. Okay, it's a race which you have to win. Everybody has started an AI company. The one who gets the first patent is the first holder of the right. So, number one, focus on registering this new tech as an IP as fast as possible. Number two, focus on information technology and data privacy area. Okay, take consent, take a disclaimer, limit your liability, have your data privacy infringing insurance in place. Okay, and the third advice is on the litigation, where define the jurisdiction of the litigation in your contracts where you're using data as well as artificial intelligence technology, so that you have limited the forum where it can come up for adjudication. I think these are the three broad advices for next 3 to 5 years from my side. Register IP of the new tech as fast as possible. Data privacy, have a focus on consent, disclaimer, limitation of liability and liability insurances for that. And number three, focus on the jurisdiction for litigation in these areas and have a jurisdiction decided so that there is all litigation lying in certain jurisdictions or forum where it is decided, because this will be the trend which you'll see in next to 3 to 5 years.
Today morning, Zameer, I had an interview with John Quinn. I don't know whether you know him. You know him? He's a
I
big
heard it,
litigation
right?
lawyer,
Absolutely.
American.
Yeah.
So he was echoing the same sentiments when it came to litigation and IP and all that, what you said.
Right.
So, as a Harvard AMP alumnus, alongside global leaders like late Ratan Tata ji and Master Card CEOs and Fortune 500 chairpersons, how has your experience, shaped your board level thinking, leadership philosophy, and global influence?
Harvard basically changes you personal and professionally. It gives you a vision, what you're going to do in next 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? Number two, it instills in you the leadership quality of thinking for a company as a visionary for next 20 years, right? That if I have to run this company for next 20 years, how should I operate? What should be my operating process? SOP, standard operating protocols. When I spoke about the 5 features which Harvard instilled in us, is this kind of leadership. The fact of you being a leader, a role model of a leadership, right? Leading from the front, people looking up to you as a leader, saying that this is the leader who will take the right decision, he will take the right kind of act, and it will not be just driven by money, it will be governed by governance as well as the business goals, right? So number one is the leadership which they instill in you. Number two, Harvard also trains you to be very strategic in your life, not only personally, but professionally for the company also. Okay. So when we go to Harvard, the first day discussion is that you may be working in one of the best companies, which is, which is doing a great business. How do you make it much better than that? Or you may be working in a company which is going down, and how do you bring up that company? Okay. So number two is a strategic approach in whatever you're doing. Number three, Harvard instills in you the fact of a culture. Company without governance, company without ethics, integrity is not a company which will survive for long. We have plenty of examples which they teach us in a classroom, for example, Enron, etc. Okay. Number four, operational efficiency. Operational efficiency means, can you expedite a process? Can you bring in a technology which can take care of the administrative part so that you can focus on productive part of it. Okay. And fifth is execution. You will always be recognized as a great leader if you have an execution capability. If people keep thinking for a year and don't execute, you will not be a great leader. So these are some of the traits which Harvard instills in you. The third fact is that when you meet CEOs of great companies, and I've met CEOs of some companies which are so well known in the global market, and those CEOs are at a very high level positions, like for example, Mastercard CEO who I met. Okay, what I saw in them is the driving force to take the whole company together. Okay, there's a approach of a humbleness in running those companies because they have a vision. This vision cannot be executed without a team. There can't be a leader without a team.
The
Leader
comrades.
always requires a team, because if you don't have a follower, you are not a leader, right?
Yes, yes.
So they understand the value of the team. They understand the value of culture. So there is a vision to it, there's a team to it, and then there is a culture approach which drives to the values. And if you see, these companies have survived for 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, because they have not compromised with that. All right. One of the best examples you have is General Electric. Okay. There are up number of examples available for GE where they will never compromise with their value system. Okay. They will deliver the best product, but they will never compromise with the value system. L&T, Larsen and Toubro in India, is one of the best companies known for governance. They are executing all public contracts, but they are known for their governance standards. People know that this is a company of integrity and value system. Okay. So this is what sum and substance Harvard actually gives you. It creates you as a great leader. It creates you as a great visionary. It instills in you certain traits where you can lead a company to success for a long time with your business skill sets as well as your governance skill sets. So that's the sum and substance of meeting all the great people in Harvard on how they run the company and how those companies have been surviving for decades and decades and doing best of the business while maintaining their value system.
That's true. So they have really rubbed off on you. Yeah.
No, I think that's the reality of life we should accept.
And it's so thank you so much, Zameer. It was one of the finest interviews that I've conducted, and there's so many takeaways from your learnings, and you had so much to give to our audiences. It was brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you very much.